Welcome back to another episode of the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. We took a little bit of a hiatus. Chip was in Portland. Our Massillon Tigers are underway for the high school football season. Our kids are back in school, and so we took a 1 week break. Chip, how are we doing tonight? Are we excited to get back on the podcast?
We are. It's hot. Our elementary schools do not have AC, so my second oldest is out of school for the next week because we have professional development Friday and then Labor Day. Back from Portland, got to go out to Portland, go out to Beaverton, go see Nike campus. That was an experience like no other. It was really cool being out there, and I'm excited to talk Disney because I was just listening to podcasts my entire way out, and I was like, kind of had the itch.
We have so much to talk about because we have a lot to catch up on. We didn't talk about D23 or Multipass or any of that fun stuff because we had that awesome episode with Rachel Cruz. Yep. So I think it's important. Like, let's jump right into the D23 announcements, and we're not going to recap all of them because I know a lot of you have had a chance to digest a lot of that news. But in general, I want to know, Chip, what were you most excited about that was announced, and what was something that you kind of wanted or didn't get that you wish you had?
Honestly, I was excited for there are three things I was super excited. Number one, the cruise, the amount of ships they're releasing. Being the cruise guy, I was shocked. I thought maybe 2 more, but when we're getting 4 more, I mean, it's almost getting a whole new fleet, so I'm excited to see what that entails. The Magic Kingdom expansion, we had talked about it potentially happening. If it's different Cars Land, I'm all in. If it's the same as Disneyland, I'm going to be a little disappointed. And then, it's funny, before it, I was talking with one of my friends, and he said, we need another A-list attraction at Hollywood Studios. And if they're going to do the Monsters, Inc. coaster, I'm all in on that. Now, where it goes is up to debate, but I'm excited for that. That's probably my number one. I'm excited for that Monsters, Inc. coaster.
Was there anything that you didn't get that you wish, they would have touched on?
I was hoping for a resort. And this is probably more looking at the overall 10-year plan or 15-year plan, whatever it is. I was expecting maybe another moderate or value resort. I know DVC, they're talking Reflections is coming back. We'll see. But I think that's the only thing that I was really disappointed about was the resort. I think Disneyland's going to be awesome. Now I'm itching. I'm going to wait a couple years to go out to Disneyland, but with their expansion, I think that's going to be big too.
So I got ripped by some of the people on the internet shortly after this because my comment was like, Avatar, they're putting way more money into Avatar than I think it has like enjoyment with today's kids.
You're not wrong.
And I would say the same thing about Cars. And everyone responded, my little boys love Cars. Like, my boys love Cars too. My kids love Cars. But it's not the same as Frozen that you're seeing in, Paris. Like, that land in the domestic United States would be huge.
The one,
but what bothers me,
Shanghai? I think it's in Shanghai, yeah.
It's it, but that they announced that they're building it in Paris, right? Like, it's almost done.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're building one in Paris. So what bothers me though is that like in the domestic parks, there shouldn't be overlap from my perspective.
I agree.
Like you don't need Frozen you don't need Cars and Avatar in both domestic United States parks. Give us something different, especially like you pointed out in Magic Kingdom. It better be different, and I get the vibe that it is. Yeah. I'm not one of those guys that's gonna like throw a huge fit about losing Rivers of America or whatever. But like my disappointment in the announcements was mostly like why not give us something that's a completely different IP or no IP at all that you don't get in California and vice versa. Like I just the first Avatar movie came out when we were kids, and the argument for that is like all these people say it makes so much money at the box office, and it's like that doesn't mean that it's going to be a driver of kids going to the parks. And
I've watched it one full time. I watched it in college with our roommates. We sat down and we were like, hey, we're going to spend 2.5 hours and watch this. I'm not wasting 2.5 hours to watch the second one.
Well, and here's the other part that's frustrating is like people always jump on, well, the line for Flight of Passage is always long, and there's always people in Pandora, and it's like in reality that's because there's not a whole lot else to do in Animal Kingdom.
Yes.
Like that is the ride, so everybody flocks there. But when Tropical Americas comes out, it's going to disperse people, and I don't think you're going to have, the demand that you see now for Pandora, because honestly, people don't care that much. That's just, I get that people disagree with me, and there's a lot of Avatar fans and yada yada yada. Like, I understand. I'm not dissing Avatar as a whole. I just think like it's got to land in California. If you're an Avatar fan and you want to go visit, it's got to land in Florida. Go visit it there. It doesn't need to be also in Disneyland, and vice versa with Cars.
Yeah.
But
what were you excited about? Yeah, I was going to say, what were you excited about?
The most exciting thing to me was the Magic Kingdom expansion. I think my concern is that there's a lot of this stuff that is still blue sky, even though they're saying it's not blue sky. Like the concept art for Monsters Inc. was from like 2020.
I think it's actually from like 2012.
It's older, right? Like there's been people that have talked about it, but the reporting was, they don't know where they're going to put it. And from a nostalgia standpoint, like while I don't care about Rivers of America, I do care about Muppets. 100%. Mostly because my family has like a personal connection to the Miss Piggy statue. They can do whatever they want with the rest of it. I just want that fountain to stay there because it means a lot to my wife and to my kids. But like the idea that they don't know where they're going to put it is kind of frightening to me. That like I just feel like we've talked on this show a lot. Our biggest criticism is the slow pace at which they move in comparison to Universal. And I think that like it doesn't sound like any of this stuff's going to be done for at least a couple of years. Tropical America is probably being first. But the biggest disappointment to me, though, was what you touched on. I cared the most. Like, all this stuff's great. The number one thing I wanted was transportation announcements, and number two was resort announcements.
Yeah.
And I said that on Threads, and I think there were a lot more people that agreed with that than I anticipated. Skyliner expansion would have probably blown everyone's socks off.
You know what's funny? You said that, and I was like, you know what? That could be the one thing they haven't talked about is a Skyliner expansion. We're probably never going to get the monorail expansion. I know that's always been a talk, but it's old technology, I guess, is what I would say. But I 100% the Skyliner should be going to Animal Kingdom somehow.
And like there's all these people that are saying it's too expensive. There's all these other reasons. I don't care what the reasons are. Just make it happen. Like it doesn't matter to me. They're Imagineers for a reason. Figure it out. But the other part of it is like I don't care necessarily that I would want the Skyliner. I think that'd be great. But any other form of transportation that's new and is an attraction in and of itself would be a lot of fun. And I think that would have been even more of a hit than probably anything but Villains Land. Villains Land was going to be the topper. But they really need another moderate resort, another value resort, and to be honest, they need to retheme pretty much every moderate and value resort except for Caribbean Beach and Coronado Springs.
Yes, they need to redo Port Orleans. They just need to go ahead and restart it.
It's so dark and dank.
Yeah, it is dark.
Like Chip, do you agree with me that the value resorts like Pop Century, like I know that people love it, but it needs a retheme. It needs a retheme. It's so dated, and all the All-Star resorts fit that bill.
Yeah, I think if you do that and then keep the All-Stars kind of where they're at and maybe update those along the way, I don't know. Yeah, it needs a new theme. Pop Century is just a little older, but what are you going to do? They can't add a pool, or add a. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do there.
I don't know what the answer is, man. But I mean, I've talked about my experiences there, personally. But it's a great resort. It's on the Skyliner. It fits its mold or whatever. But there's nobody that's booking Pop Century because they love the theme, or the look of the aesthetic.
Skyliner.
Yes. And so to me, it's like it needs a new lift, especially for some of the prices that they're commanding. But in reality, like if they put in a new value resort and a new moderate resort, I'd be happy. They can't just keep giving DVC resorts. as much as you.
And I'm a DVC
love
member,
DVC.
and I'm
Yeah.
saying that all in too. Like, they're still selling. I mean, they're still selling the Riviera. They're going to be selling Poly Tower. They're still selling Alani. And I think Grand Floridian, I don't think is sold out either. So they've got 4 active that they're trying to sell. I don't know. I don't like the idea of putting in reflections. I would rather just put in a moderate. Make reflections a moderate over there. That would fit in perfectly.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about multipass probably over the next couple weeks. But in general, Chip, multipass is replacing Genie Plus. Have you had any thoughts on what? Because I know you haven't experienced it. I've booked it for some guests. What have your thoughts been so far on multipass replacing Genie Plus?
I think it's going. I mean, the biggest thing that you and I have talked about is it's just they're running out way too quick, and I don't know what the answer, the solution is. I mean, that's kind of the thing. I like the idea of pre-planning. I think that's a big key.
You know what the answer is. You just don't want to say it.
I do know what the answer is, but I'm not going to say it.
I'll say it. You go ahead, and then I'll say it.
I think one of the things is it's just you've got to allow everybody an opportunity to get those rides, or don't have it at all. I don't know. But my buddy Max did it, and he enjoyed it. But he also goes on dead weeks, so he was able to get it. Magic Kingdom's the big one they used it for. They didn't use it for Animal Kingdom or Epcot, but they used it for Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom, and they enjoyed it. So I think that's why.
It meets its value threshold from my perspective. $30 to skip the line for at least 3 rides is typically worth it from my perspective.
Yeah.
And you can, if you've used free Fast Pass in the past, you can be mad that it was previously free and it's not now. But when it just comes down to the amount of time that you'll save from even just 3 rides, $30 is usually probably going to be worth it. Now, when you start getting your bigger party and stuff like that, it becomes more complicated. But what I'm seeing is Slinky Dog Dash and Tiana's. If you only have like a 3-day vacation, you're probably not even getting those rides at all.
Yeah.
So and your best chance is to get it on your last day of your vacation. It's similar to dining. Like for the tough to get rides, you want to start at the back end of your vacation and work your way forward, like Slinky Dog Dash, Tiana's, and stuff like that. And they're just all gone like before 11 a.m. So you can't expect to go in and scan in at 11 o'clock for one of your rides and then have a tier 1, top attraction available. It's just not going to be there unless the parks are dead. And we haven't even really seen a busy experience yet for multipass.
No, they've been
it's
been pretty slow.
Yeah. So to me, they're adjusting what your expectations are. If you're buying Genie Plus or you're buying multipass, what used to be Genie Plus, before you'd expect to get like 5 to 8 pretty good rides. Now I think you're going to get 3 to 5, and 5 is if you're really lucky. That's my perspective on it.
And your
But the
last,
answer
your
to-
la- I was
Go
going
ahead.
to say your last rides are like the Teacups, Dumbo.
Nothing
Goofy's
you would
Flight.
ever care or need to book a Genie Plus for.
Correct. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But the answer to all of this is that it needs to be way more expensive. And people just don't want to hear that. But there's a reason why at Universal, when you do pay for it, everyone is happy with the experience.
Yeah.
When you buy Express Pass or Express Pass Unlimited at Universal, nobody complains about the lines or the experience typically. Now you can talk about, is it worth it to buy a different, book a premier level resort or do the VIP tour, whatever. There's all kinds of hacks on whether or not you can save money. But is this worth skipping all the lines? It's never a problem because you can pretty much walk up. You don't have to pre-book anything,
No,
which
you
is
just walk
great.
up.
But could you imagine what it would do to the value of a deluxe resort reservation if it included, all the lightning lanes for all the rides?
What's crazy is my DVC. I'd bet my DVC points would probably triple.
But I mean, the prices would go up for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like the price per night at deluxe resorts would absolutely go up. And then you'd have $100 to $200 per person per day for skipping the line. But I also think that the standby lines would be better also, because there'd be less people using lightning lanes. in
Correct,
theory,
I think,
which is what
and
you
then
see at Universal.
And if you ever watch, like they have a sheet they have to follow. They let 25 lightning pass in before they let 20 standby. I mean, they have some sort of algorithm. I don't know what it is, but there's a sheet normally, and you might be able to get a picture of it or see it on Twitter or something. But you're not wrong on that theory.
Can we just throw out like the amount of respect I have for cast members when they're figuring out who goes into what row based on how many people are in their party? I see that, and it's like the Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover with like all the math going around his head. That's what that reminds me of, because I'm sitting there thinking like, how do you remember and like make sure that it's full and yada, like respect to the cast members that do that. But we'll touch more on multi-pass strategy over the next few weeks on different episodes, because I really think when we go into like Christmas season, things are going to completely change, and the user experience and all that stuff's going to be completely different. But let's jump into the crux of the episode. Wait, do you want to say something?
I was going to ask, has it sold out at all? Has Max Packs sold out?
In what sense?
You know how Genie Plus would sell out? I don't know.
It's not the same way, because like you can, there's still, as long as there's 3 rides to book, it technically won't be sold out, right?
Okay,
but the problem is the majority of the time, if you log in and you want to book Slinky Dog Dash for the next however many days, I'll look at it. Actually, I want to. So 21-day Lightning lane availability is on thrillldata.com. Okay. And if you look for 8/31 to 9/5, Haunted Mansion is already partially sold out every day. Seven Dwarves Mine Train is completely unavailable on 8/31, which is 3 days from now.
And that's
Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
That's separate, right?
No, Seven Dwarves Mine Train, you can buy an individual Lightning Lane, and it's already not available.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Or it's only available like after 5 p.m. or something.
Weird.
If we go over to Slinky Dog Dash, it is not available until the evening of 9/2. There's nothing available before noon until 9/7, which is
the first.
You can't even book that far out right now unless you have like a 5-day vacation or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the people that have an annual pass that are locals that can only book 3 days from now, or if you're staying off site, with multipass, you're screwed, because you can't book until 3 days before your vacation, and the majority of the stuff that's like that you really want is gone. So Tower of Terror, for example, through 9/5 is not available until the afternoon. Toy Story Mania through 9/7. So we're talking 9 days from now. The next 9 days, it's not available until the afternoon. That's crazy. That's crazy to me.
Yes.
So you've got to keep that stuff in mind. And then in reality, it may not be worth it for you if, the rides that you want are not available. You may just be doing the standby line thing, which at the end of September, when my family does it, like, it's going to be a reality check. My kids aren't used to waiting in line. We always buy Genie Plus, and because to me it's worth it with little kids to make sure that you're skipping the line.
You have Goofy's Flight, Dumbo. You're gonna be able to ride them all.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, let's jump into the main crux of the episode today, which is we want to talk about Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. And I think you and I can agree that this party and the Christmas party are two things that we typically recommend to families 100%. As a whole.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what to expect from the Halloween party in particular. And so, Chip, in general, what's your advice to somebody that comes to you and says, hey, I'm on the fence about booking the Halloween party?
My suggestion is do it. Spend a day and enjoy your resort and go do it, because there's going to be things your kids can do that they might not be able to do. I've always said in the past, my wife grew up not trick-or-treating. She grew up on a farm, so they didn't trick-or-treat. So if that would be something she would have loved to do as a kid. There's characters. Now, don't get me wrong, the line for the characters is kind of crazy, but it is kind of cool to see them if you have a certain character you really want to see. But is it worth $200 to wait for 3 hours to meet one character? Maybe not. The parade is pretty cool. The fireworks. If you want to ride rides and do it, it's one of those things that is the value to you. I don't want to say, for me, it would be. My kids dressing up in costumes, us dressing up as a family. I think that's the big sell, because normally adults can't dress up. Kids can dress up every day, but adults can't dress up. So I think it's more of a doing a family dress up. I would not suggest going right now because it's still hot as all get out, and your candy's going to be all melted by the time you get out of the park. But if this is your time to go, I would go, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to consider. Also, if you've got little kids, I think the most important thing, and Chip and I know this from experience, can your kids handle it? Can they handle staying up until 10, 11, midnight to get the real value out of this? Because it really kicks in at like 7 o'clock. And so you want, like last year, I think my kids made it until like 10:30, and we knew going into it that they may not make it that late. We're going this year, and I think that the expectation is they're going to be able to make it a little bit later. But if you know that your kids are going to be not enjoying the experience after 9 o'clock, then it's probably not worth it to you. The other big one that I see is when people are evaluating their budget for their trip and they're making the decision, do I want to do the Halloween party or do I want to bump up to 4 days or 5 days of tickets? To me, the answer is always the tickets. Yeah. I love the Halloween party. It's my favorite thing to do with my family. But when you're talking about $180 to $200 per person, that usually covers for your budget going from 3 days of tickets all the way to 5. So
and
if you're
potentially park hopper as well.
yeah, and especially for November and December, September, October, November, because of the current fall discount, if you have 4 days of tickets or more, you're getting free park hopper. So it absolutely means if you're going from 3 days to 4 or 5 days, you're getting free park hopper added on. You're getting 2 more days of 2 more days in the parks. To me, that's a no-brainer. The last one that I think is an important factor is if you're going primarily for the rides, you should not go to the Halloween party and instead go to Magic Kingdom during the day.
100%.
We know from the data, and it follows again this year, if you look at thrill data, you look at the ride wait time data, Magic Kingdom is always slower the day of the park, or the day of the parties. It's always slower. So if you go in in the morning, and the reason is that people don't want to spend an extra park day ticket if they're going to the party, right? So they're not going into Magic Kingdom before the party starts and when they can go in at 4 o'clock. So if you get in there early, you're going to be able to do a bunch of rides. And then I think this goes hand in hand with that. We now have ride wait time data from the Halloween party for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll say 6 parties. We have ride wait time data.
6 is Friday, I believe, actually.
So 6 would have been yesterday.
Okay, so 7.
The 6th party was yesterday, but one of them was basically rained out.
Okay.
So we'll really say we have wait time data for 5, and the wait times are not short. Like there's this misconception that goes around the internet, and like after the first party, I got really mad because one of the big websites posted an article basically saying all the rides are walk-ons. And that could not be further from the truth. If you think that you're going to go to the Halloween party and walk on the majority of the rides, especially the e-ticket attractions, you're going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. If we run through a couple, and Chip and I talked about this before we got on, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, average wait time is an hour. Tron Light Cycle Run, average wait time is 30 to 45 minutes, which is great because you get that standby option that you don't normally get. Yeah. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, the average wait time is 45 minutes to an hour. If you look at Peter Pan's Flight, 25 to 45 minutes on average. Haunted Mansion, 20 to 45 minutes on average. Like, these are not low wait times for the big e-ticket attractions here. So, like, the idea, I think the overall average wait time at Magic Kingdom is 15 minutes, but that's skewed because of the People Movers included, Tomorrowland Speedway's included, the Barnstormer. I mean, I know that that's a family favorite, but like Mad Tea Party, all of those things are skewing that data down. And in reality, if you go there expecting to walk onto the rides, you're going to be disappointed. Right?
Yeah, the rides, I mean, The only two rides that, man, I talked about this before the show, is I would want to ride Haunted Mansion just because you're there for the Halloween party, and you've got the ghost at the end, and then you've got the live pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean. Those are the two rides that I would be like, I have to do to make this party a success.
See,
everything else I would need to do.
Chip, I got to tell you, my top two priorities would be Tiana's and Tron. And because you get the standby, right? So you basically get the value of a lightning lane. You could call that, $15 to $20, whatever you want to call it. You get that value, but those rides at night are so much better too. They're so much better.
I don't disagree with you on Tiana's and Tron. I don't have a great. I like Tron. I'd ride it. I don't mind riding it, but I'm also like, I could. It's a minute and 15 seconds, so.
Put your first time Disney goer hat on though. Like if this is your one trip and you want to ride Tron, that's the opportunity.
But I'm not wasting 45 minutes on a party. I'm not wasting an hour on a party.
That's a good point. And so to that point, let's talk strategy, right? Yeah. There is a strategy to this where you can jump into some of the rides or the character lines or even the trick or treat lines and be able to get lower wait times. And the main strategy is to go during the parade or during the fireworks. Yep. Or like during the Sandersons performance, that kind of thing. What would you prioritize, Chip, if you're going with your family and you'd never been to a Halloween party? What's your...
Knowing my kids, we would want to see the Boo-to-You parade. Great soundtrack, by the way. Mm-hmm. The fireworks would be up there as well. But my kids love Happily Ever After, so I think they would just like to see something else up there as well. In trick-or-treating, I'm sure, I've got 5 kids. We go trick-or-treating, and we go around our neighborhood. We take a break after an hour and unload our candy. And depending on how mom and dad feel determines if we go out for another hour. But it's, my kids love candy, and that's kind of one of their things. So that would be a priority. Maybe meeting some of the unique characters, but we're not Jack and Sally fans, so I don't need to meet her. But my daughter would probably like to see the princes with the princesses.
You remember how mad I was last year about that? So for those that don't remember the episode last year, after I got back from the Halloween party, we went to the Halloween party last year because my son was obsessed with Jack and Sally. Like at that point in time, Nightmare Before Christmas was his favorite thing to watch, and I could not miss the opportunity to take him to the Halloween party. He's the same way this year, which I'm excited about. Like he still loves Nightmare Before Christmas, but we went straight as soon as we could to Jack and Sally at 4 p.m. and the line was 4 hours long. 4 hours long. By the end of the night, my daughter really wanted to meet Prince Eric. So Eric and Ariel are there, and you normally can't meet Prince Eric. That took us an hour and a half. And it's partially because it's hot, and so the characters are going in and out for breaks all the time. But man, we did not... You kind of get into that phase as a parent where you're like, I'm doing what my kids really want to do. Even if it's not something that I think strategy-wise is best, you just do it. And we wrote it out, and that was fine. But man, that was tough. So I think you've just got to keep your expectations down, because a lot of people read this stuff online and they think that they're going to be able to walk in and do whatever they want, and the park's going to be empty, and it's not that way at all. Like it feels just as crowded, if not more crowded, than a normal park day at Magic Kingdom. Don't you agree?
Yes, and then you've got to factor in the rain.
Yeah.
The rain will put a rain on your party too. It kind of dampers that.
Yeah.
In Florida at this time of year, you're going to get rain, so just be hesitant on that as well.
So I'll give my priority list real quickly. For me, priorities for the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party is the first Boo-to-You parade, and then the Sanderson sisters performance are the two priorities. Tiana's is the top ride, 1 or 2 trick-or-treat spots, and then 1 or 2 character meets if possible. And the character meet that this year I think is interesting is if you go to Princess Fairy Tale Hall, because Maleficent and the Evil Queen are in the queue. You can't actually like meet them and like get up close to them and take a picture, but they're close enough that you can stand in front of them and get a picture, and that's pretty cool. Jack and Sally like are great, but where I would use this to my advantage is like I'd skip the fireworks because we love. I think like they're fine. The music is just fine, but like if you love Happily Ever After, and you know your kids will get more out of like meeting Jack and Sally at that point in time, then go and try and knock out some rides or knock out some of the stuff that normally has a longer line while other people are watching the fireworks or watching the second Booty U parade. That's where you really want to try and maximize some other stuff, I think.
And I would say you've got to prioritize where you want to be. Don't be walking from Tomorrowland to Adventureland and back and forth because you're just going to get exhausted. It's tiring. So figure out what those rides are. Now, with the candy spots, those are placed all the way around the park. So
yeah, and it's all the same candy in general.
And I think you can go through the same line multiple times.
Yeah, you can pop back in a line. And my kids are really excited to trick or treat this year, which I like wasn't necessarily expecting. And I think your mileage may vary. Like on a different party night, you can have a different experience. So you got to keep that stuff in mind. But overall, it's absolutely worth it, I think.
And I would lean, if you're going to book, if you're there for a full week, take the midweek one versus the Friday night because you're going to get more locals in that one. I know a few years ago they sold that locals pass where locals could buy a pass for $400 and go to as many parties as they wanted. I don't think they're doing that again, but
no, I wish they would.
Yeah, locals come out on Fridays, so just be hesitant of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. Is like building it into your vacation the right way. Knowing that you're probably not going to want to rope drop with little kids the next day unless you're Chip, who rope drops all the time anyway. But keep that in mind when you're making your multi-pass reservations too, right? You don't want Slinky Dog at 9 a.m. the next day after the party, I think, or a character breakfast or Bibbidi Boppity Boutique for that matter at 8 a.m. the day after your party. Like think things through a little bit and hopefully you'll have a great experience there. So if you have questions about Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, anything like that, reach out to us. You can find me at Adventures of a Disney Dad on social media, or you can shoot us an email at matt@adventuresofadisneydad.com. Obviously, would also love to help you plan your vacation or book Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. You can find a quote, all that in the show notes. Chip, where can people find you on social media?
At Robinson Dad Life on Instagram.
And Chip, are you on Threads?
I am. I don't know what my name is. It might be just Chip Robinson or it's at Robinson Dad Life. I don't know.
We got to get that before the next episode because I've really enjoyed chatting Disney with people on Threads. So
the problem is I'm a big Twitter guy, and so I use Twitter more for like my football and stuff. So
sure. Well, I only talk Disney on Threads. On Twitter, I have a burner account that I follow like football and all that other stuff, but I don't post on Twitter at all. But I've enjoyed
I like stuff. I like stuff. That's kind of more or less what I do. But yeah. And I do the same thing on Threads. Sometimes I get a rabbit hole on Threads. And I'm like, I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of it.
I think there's been some really good Disney discussion on Threads lately, and I've been pleasantly surprised. And obviously, we're really trying to grow on YouTube, so you're going to see a lot of tip videos and things like that on YouTube and YouTube Shorts. So feel free to give us a follow or subscribe there. We would greatly appreciate it. We always appreciate the support of the show. Yeah, hit that thumbs up button. We appreciate that very much. And we look forward to bringing you more episodes. So thank you again for your support, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you when we see you.
All right. Nice. I thought that